Hello, doctors and design disasters. My name is TVSkyn. And today, Riot posted their latest champion roadmap, which is a post that they put out every once in a while, letting people know which champions that they're working on, which reworks, and what their thoughts are on the directions that things are going to go for the future of League of Legends. They teased out Seraphine, they teased what I think is probably going to be a cavalier, like someone who rides a mount and uses a lance as far as I can tell. But among the many teases and previews, the big one, quite literally quite big, was the reveal of their current conceptual direction for the Dr. Mundo rework. It looks like this. And, well, you've seen the title of the video, you know that I'm about to, at the very least, attempt to explain to you why I think this is bad. But in order to do that, first we kind of have to establish who is Dr. Mundo, what's he about, and what should a rework of his character design attempt to accomplish. And the number one thing that Dr. Mundo is a bit of a mess, frankly. He is both a mad scientist and a mad scientist's rampaging, terrifying monster. But then he also runs around with a meat cleaver, which aesthetically rather suggests that he's a sort of leather-faced, serious, psycho killer character from some horror franchise rather than a mad scientist's rampaging monster. But he's also a silly comedy champion who talks like this, and he's also a BDSM-style sadomasochist, someone who takes pleasure in pain and takes pleasure in dealing out pain to others. Mundo, from the very start of his conception, was always a hodgepodge of different tropes sort of slapped together into something that vaguely looks like the Hulk on a really bad night out, and which has never really coalesced into any coherent identity except through the simple attrition of time. Mundo has been Mundo for so long in League of Legends that he has solidified into a recognizable and in some ways iconic character, even in spite of himself. So that's the enormous mess that any rework of Mundo kind of has to try and work out, is that they're not really working with the best material to start from. Mundo is very much in the class of champions like Sion, who in his original conception was basically an Arnold Schwarzenegger joke that was also a zombie, but then also a mage for some reason. And Sion does seem to be where Riot's designers have been looking for this new Dr. Mundo design, because they've done to Dr. Mundo more or less the same as the Sion design did to him, which is to scrub away all the silliness and awkwardness of old League of Legends design and replace it with coolness and badassery. And for Sion, that approach works, because even though his character design and certainly his voice lines ended up coming out rather goofy, you can tell from the way that he's designed that he was always supposed to at least attempt to evoke the idea of a frightening, zombified, unstoppable, undead warrior. His original design didn't quite make him intimidating, but you can tell that that's what at least they were trying to communicate. Mundo's character design, on the other hand, has kind of been a joke from day one. He's huge, bulging, and purple. He's got a giant tongue flopping out of his head from a mouth which is filled with what can only be described as goofy teeth, and he's got an enormous comedy prop syringe sticking out of his back all the time for some reason. Mundo has never been taken seriously pretty much by anyone, least of all by Riot Games themselves, who have made him one of their premier joke comedy meme champions for pretty much the last 10 years of the game's existence. The entire joke of the corporate Mundo skin is that, oh, here he is dressed up in serious business clothes. Haha, he doesn't dress up in serious business clothes. He's a goofy cartoon character. Mundo trading stocks. How silly an idea is that? Because Mundo is a dumb, silly, stupid joke character. And that is not at all a criticism, by the way. Mundo has always been a meme champion, but he's also always been good at being a silly meme champion. Unlike your Ramesses, which are just kind of awkward because they don't really have any voice lines or any personality whatsoever, and unlike your Nunus, who are just frickin' annoying all the time, Mundo, even in his gameplay patterns with his unstoppable tanky regeneration, always had this air of trollish comedy about him. He is that incredibly annoying huge slab of meat that just comes running at you, throwing cleavers and making himself an absolute nuisance. That is what Mundo was and has been for pretty much 10 years. The cartoony joke champion, the silly anachronistic thing more and more out of step with the production values of League of Legends as a whole, more and more silly and cartoony by comparison to everything else in the game every passing day. That's his identity. That is his legacy as a character. But still, he is very much out of step with the production qualities of League of Legends, and so there are good, sensible reasons to update him. Like, at some point, perhaps it gets a little bit too much to see something that looks like it's from the Warcraft 3 era of PC gaming, running around alongside things that are supposed to be at the cutting edge of fantasy game character design in 2020. Now, to my mind, the design goals for any rework of a champion in League of Legends have to be threefold. First, to identify what makes this champion unique in the roster of League of Legends, the quality that it has that no other champion brings to the table, and focus on those and amplify them and make those its primary identity as a means to stand out in a field of like 150 other champions, all of whom are demanding your attention and demanding that you remember their character designs and their combat capabilities by sight. Second, there is a certain amount of imperative to understand and respect the history of the character and what it means to the game of League of Legends, to the history of League of Legends, and to the players of League of Legends. This is the thing that I ran face first into when I was denied my lovely Eldritch horror rework of the Volibear, and we ended up with a much more traditional interpretation of the character, which I'm salty about still, but I can see it was a distillation of exactly what Volibear was, with all of the good qualities turned up to 11. I would have preferred something more unique and original, sure, but the design that they settled on is much like the Scion rework, one that much better delivers on the original fantasy that the character promised but never quite lived up to. Now third, and perhaps most importantly, what any champion rework needs to achieve in order to be worth doing at all is to not be more boring than the champion that it is reworking. And that is where, especially, this particular concept for a Mundo rework falls on its ass and stays there. Now, caveat, of course, this is only a concept for the champion, it's not the final design. Lots of stuff can still change, who knows, maybe their thinking is evolving as we speak, and this was only like a passover stage while they were moving on to something better. That has happened before. Riot has a very long history of throwing things on the cutting room floor that were functionally finished because, well, something about it just didn't sit right with the designers. So, yes, this is a concept. Everything can still change, but this is all we have to go on now, so this is what I'm commenting on, in perhaps the very vain and vague hopes that maybe my criticism would influence them to go in literally any other more interesting direction than what they're doing right now. So let me put my objections to this character in rather mean-spirited terms. This is the obvious clone of Dr. Mundo that an unlicensed knockoff mobile game would make in order to get you to buy microtransactions. And that's like a really mean thing to say to the poor artist who designed this thing, who I'm sure, like, I am convinced that they were doing their very best and they probably had a good idea at heart, but I'm sorry, I have to evaluate the design as I see it, and this looks like mobile game character design. And what I mean by that is, in mobile games, because a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, are based around getting an audience to spend money on microtransactions. A lot of them are essentially whale hunters, trying to get people to spend as much money as possible on as many cosmetics and optional upgrades as possible. The design aesthetic that evolves in a lot of mobile games is one that emphasizes sizzle. That is to say, it emphasizes coolness, sleekness, things that look badass, that look powerful and empowering, or, alternatively, things that are alluring, attractive, and sexy. It is all flash, and often not a lot of substance, because the game and its characters are not designed to be used and looked at and appreciated long-term. They're not really designed to have a ton of depth. They're designed to be consumed, get a hit of dopamine, and then move on to the next cool thing. And so, generally speaking, you get a lot of focus on appeal types that are, first of all, very broad, that apply to a broad swath of people. And you get appeal that is designed to be rather surface level, i.e. this thing looks cool, this thing looks badass, this thing looks cute, this thing looks sexy. Things that provoke an immediate emotional reaction. And that is what this Mundo design is to me. I look at that and I go, oh shit, that looks really cool. And then I don't really have any other thoughts about it, because that's kind of, he looks cool. He looks badass. He looks like he's supposed to be hot, actually, to people who are into those particular kinds of body types. And again, that's not inherently a bad thing, except remember how we talked about Mundo's history? Everything that he has been, the core of his appeal in the history of League of Legends, what he has meant to the community around the game, and what his place has been, the unique thing that he has brought to the table that no other champion can really match. And that was never being cool or badass, or for that matter, sexy. None of those things are bad things to be, but that was never what Mundo brought to the table. That was never what made him unique, that made him stand out, that made anyone think about him. When you bring up who's the most badass character in League of Legends, Mundo isn't on that list, but if you ask who's the silliest or the funniest, well, he might just come up, actually, because Mundo goes where he pleases. Mundo was perhaps the premier comedy champion in League of Legends. He was the one that was sillier than pretty much anything else. A big, ugly, weird, sort of unappealing, huge slab of beef that throws cleavers at people and has a needle in his shoulder, and he's a sadomasochist because, I don't know, why not? And he talks in a funny voice and looks kinda dumb and goofy and has a giant mouth and a big tongue that flops around. That's Mundo's identity. That's what he was. This particular concept throws out pretty much all of that and just keeps the sizzle, the surface things, the purple skin, the glowing eyes, the big tongue, and the fact that he's got huge muscles and a cleaver. That's really all it keeps from old Mundo, but it doesn't keep any of the things that actually made him an interesting and unique character. Just the surface stuff, just the visual iconography, which was never really the core of what made the character appealing. Instead of bulging, ugly veins snaking all over his misshapen body, now he's got a perfect CrossFit anatomy, crisscrossed not with bulging veins, but with cool Hextech technology that blows out blue smoke and looks really ominous and magical. Instead of a giant misshapen face with a huge lower jaw and goofy teeth and a tongue flopping all over as he runs around on his unsteady little legs, everything's been reined in and scaled back. Instead of giant misshapen goofy teeth coming out of this huge flopping jaw that just hangs off the lower part of his head, he's got like a fairly normal looking mouth, really, and there's a big blue tongue, yeah, but it doesn't really look like a cartoon comedy tongue. It just looks like he happens to have a long tongue like Gene Simmons or something. He wears a cool, torn straitjacket, which indicates that he's a crazy psychopath from an insane asylum, because that's badass and cool, rather than anything that would make him look funny or anachronistic, like, I don't know, a novelty t-shirt? A shirt that's 4 sizes too small, but he's found some way to make it fit him anyway? Anything that makes him look silly or goofy, rather than cool and badass. Indeed, the only concession in his entire character design to a comedy aesthetic is the fact that he's wearing, like, one kitty slipper. Like, that kind of seems to be the only part of this concept that's designed to look a little bit silly, that's designed not to be taken fully seriously. He's even got a hairstyle. Like, he's got a cut. Like, that's a fade with, like, rows in it, and I don't know. He went to the barber, I guess? Did he do it himself? Why would Mundo conceivably, as a character design, need to have a cool hairstyle? And, like, it would kind of work if there was a thing where everything else about him looked completely stupid and ridiculous and lopsided and weird, but then only his hair is perfect. That would be a funny anachronistic detail, but it's not. Every part of him looks like that. Every part of him looks sleek and put together rather than chaotic and weird and wild. And that's really the thing that gets me, is that Mundo, of all the champions in League of Legends, Mundo is surely the one where you push the boat out. where like you push the envelope a little bit, you go a little bit above and beyond, you go a little bit more crazy, you get a little bit more weird, because you can do that with him. He's the silly joke comedy champion. You can get weird with him. You can do dumb, crazy, stupid shit that wouldn't work anywhere else, because that's his thing. That's what Mundo brings to the table, is this opportunity to just go wild, to swing for the fences, to try something that we've never seen in League of Legends before, instead of this middle-of-the-road mobile game, sizzle reel, rule of cool, shallow, bland, sleek junk food design. And again, sometimes you want the junk food design, sometimes you want the rule of cool. Samira is full of rule of cool, but that works for her because she's a Devil May Cry character. Mundo is an Adult Swim cartoon. He's dumb and silly and sort of vaguely kind of edgy in a weird way. He's grungy. He's supposed to look like something that came out of the back of a magazine that you're not allowed to buy if you're under 16, but which you would be embarrassed to buy if you were over 17. Mundo brings something unique to the table in League of Legends. This particular concept for a Mundo rework doesn't. Now here at the end, I want to stress, I'm not especially beating up on whatever concept artist put this artwork together. Character design and champion design in League of Legends and in gaming in general is a collaborative effort. It is always a team thing, and there are always people standing one level above on the corporate ladder, looking down and giving notes and having concerns and making changes and saying, ooh, couldn't we smoothen this out a little bit, and wouldn't that maybe turn some people off? There's always all these pressures from every direction that can sand down what makes a character unique. Did that happen in this case with Mundo? I don't know. But I don't want to leave you with the impression that I'm sitting here calling the particular artist who created this concept bad at their job or anything like that, because I'm 99% sure that they were actually doing their job really well and producing exactly what they were asked to produce. And my criticism is of the thing that they were asked to produce, not of the person who happened to produce it. Anyway, that was a rant that probably went on for 5 minutes longer than it really needed to, but I needed to get this out of my system. Anyway, if you've enjoyed hearing me rant about the potential, maybe, probably not, who knows, just conceptual direction for the Dr. Mundo rework, well, the like, comment, and or subscribe buttons are there for that particular purpose. It makes numbers go up, and numbers going up, something algorithm, YouTube, I don't know. It's what lets me do this stuff for a living, so if you want to help me out, I'd appreciate it. You can also help me out by supporting me directly. I have a Patreon, I have a merchandise store, I have a tip jar. If you want to use any of them, that helps me out, kind of a lot. But if you don't want to, that's completely okay as well. At the end of my videos, though, I do try to encourage people that if you have online content creators whose work you enjoy, please consider supporting them directly with anything you can, whenever you can, because even a small donation, like a $1 donation one time, can be quite literally the same as thousands of views on a video. So especially for smaller content creators, your direct support can make much more of a difference than perhaps it feels like. So again, whether it's me or someone else, if there's online content that you enjoy, please consider supporting it directly with anything you can, whenever you can. Anyway, I also have a second channel. I play Legends of Runeterra over there, also some other video games. There's some footage of that playing on your screen right now, probably. You can subscribe to that as well if you want to, and if you don't want to, that's also fine. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to wash your hands and wear a mask, and have solidarity with those who are out there in the world right now, fighting to make it a slightly better place.